Hey, if you've ever thought about joining the Motivate with Coach Camp team, I'm going to let you know something. Now's your opportunity. So right now we are taking sponsors. And if you would like to be a sponsor, hey, look at the bottom of my podcast, click that link, fill out that information form, and we are going to get back to you. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Coach Camp. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Motivate with Coach Camp, produced by Shelby Road Productions. This podcast is intended to inspire, enlighten, motivate, encourage, and lead by example. So sit down, buckle up, and get ready to grow as we dive into this week's episode of Motivate with Coach Camp.
Wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I am down here in these awesome, amazing, illustrious studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. Yes, I am saying his name correctly for 2024. That is going to be my goal. All last year, I've been saying Michaud. He comes in, he's like, hey, dude, my name's Michaud. I'm like, well, you know, nothing like a year to go by before you finally let me know that one. That's fine. No big deal there. But look, this is 2024. Obviously, we're going to kick this year off great. We had a great first season. I appreciate everybody tuning in over the last year. We have grown so much. Up to date, we are now in every single state in the union. So we are being listened to in all 50 states and 19 different countries. Are you kidding me? I don't even know that it exists. How does this happen? It's like magic, y'all. So I am super fired up. I am super excited. And when I started thinking about 2024, by the way, let me be the first one because I know no one else has said this to you today. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. I have big plans for this year. I know that we are going to go places. We are going to do things. This is going to be amazing. Coach Camp show. I just see big things happening for a lot of folks out there, and I'm excited about it. But I thought about it. How do you lead off? What do you want to do for your second season? How do you have somebody come in and bat lead off? You need a pro. That's what I thought. Immediately I said, I need a professional. How am I going to find a professional? Who is going to come on this show that can do just like amazing things with a microphone? And it hit me. Gary Parrish, my boy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gary Parrish. If you're from the area, I'm going to dare say, and if you like basketball, you know this guy. He is a professional columnist. He is a TV analyst for CBS Sports. And he also happens to be my friend. Mm-hmm. So this time, what's up, Mr. Gary Parrish?
Good to see you, brother.
Man, you too, bud.
I appreciate you inviting me over, and it's an honor to be here. I'm happy for you, all your success.
Man, I appreciate it, dude. Look, I can't believe it. Can you believe this? We're sitting here in a studio.
Right.
You and I.
Right.
Are making a show.
Nobody would have predicted this in the early 90s.
No, we were in the principal's office.
Yeah. If you had said jail or successful media members, you might have picked jail.
I would have probably picked jail.
Yeah,
I'd have been like, I'm not betting against that one.
Yeah, no, prison seems like a possibility. Prison's on the table.
Oh,
but,
my God.
Hey, we've taken some twists and turns, but this is where we're at now.
Look, Gary, it's been a minute since we've been able to hang out. And you've been doing the CBS thing and in basketball analyst, and you've been in New York a lot.
Yes. I hear that from a lot of my old friends, people we grew up with. It's like, yeah, I haven't seen you in a while, or man, we don't get together anymore. And it always feels like it's a criticism. I don't take that. I don't mean it from you, but sure. I mean, it's like, oh, you've moved on to bigger and better. I'm like, dude, first off, I'm barely here. Yeah. Secondly, I have 3 kids and a wife and too many jobs. And I don't hang out with anybody. Like sometimes I get the sense that people think, oh, he's just hanging out with his TV friends and he's forgot about his high school friends. I'm like, no, I don't hang out with anybody. My wife, my kids, and random people I meet at the airport. That's my life. It's wild that I've ended up in this spot, because though I always had aspirations of it, and I had dreams and a pretty good idea of what I wanted to try to do in my career, I didn't dream of all this. In part because some of the stuff I do now didn't even exist, like podcast, when that's a newer thing. But, if you'd have told me, like, all I wanted to be was a newspaper writer at the Commercial Appeal, I was happy to do that. And I got that pretty quickly straight out of college. And from there, things have really taken off. I'm fortunate. It's not lost on me.
Yeah, no, I didn't think you were at all. In fact, I'm on the same page with you, my friend. And that I really just enjoy sitting in my living room.
Yeah.
And not really hearing all the noise going on outside.
Right.
And I live on a little farm.
There you go.
And so, yeah, I'm with you, man. It's not a lack of desire to see people.
Yeah, I love it.
It's just the way life is.
I love it. Yeah, that's the thing. I love it. I even noticed it. I was thinking about this. Is it normal to just sort of you don't lose love for people, but you just sort of lose contact with them. Now, it's easier today because of text, Facebook, all that stuff.
Sure.
But I noticed it. I remember when I was a child, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we would always we're going to the lake with mom and dad's friends, and they grew up together. They were high school friends, and then at some point it just stopped. We just weren't going to the lake with Mr. Steve anymore, who graduated high school with my dad. Yeah. And I now notice that in my own life, because I still live in the same, relatively speaking, community.
Yeah, so I want to go there. Where did you grow up?
I'm going to bump into people that I see, and when I see them, it's always great. But I don't spend a lot of time with people from our past too often, which is kind of a bummer. I grew up in Horn Lake. I was Churchwood Estates, right off of Highway 51 and Church Road there. And when you grow up in Horn Lake, it's it's not. I'm always hesitant. It's not poverty, but it was not, upper middle class either. I never had to wonder if I was going to eat today.
Right.
But we did worry about other things, but I was, more fortunate than some, I guess.
Yeah, brothers, sisters?
One younger brother. He's about 2.5 years younger than me. So we grew up together. We were in Churchwood, went to Horn Lake Elementary, Horn Lake Middle, Horn Lake High. And, when to go, I have this thought sometimes, and I try to remind myself of this because you get to do so many cool things when your career unfolds this way, and you find yourself in situations that you couldn't even possibly have envisioned once upon a time. And there's just these moments where, I'm sitting in a makeup chair at the CBS Broadcast Center, getting my makeup done.
Yeah.
Across the hall is Leslie Stahl from 60 Minutes getting her makeup done. And I'm exaggerating here, but you get the point.
Yeah.
And I just go, I'm from Churchwood Estates.
Right.
I'm not supposed to be here.
I think that's what makes it special, though, man.
Yeah.
If you grew up in that kind of industry. You probably take it for granted.
Yeah. There's a lot of, you look at a lot of people and you go, well, how'd they get here? Well, their dad was in journalism, and then they went to Missouri and had an incredible journalism school and got that degree. So that all makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was a meat cutter. My mom was a blackjack dealer. I'm the first college graduate in my family.
Where'd you go to school?
University of Memphis. And, but even then, University of Memphis, I'm proud of my degree. It's a nice journalism department. It's not one of the 10 best or 20 best in the country. Even people who come from the University of Memphis journalism department don't often go to the places I've been lucky enough to go. And so I do have these little experiences every once in a while where I go, man, that's where I started, and I have somehow ended up here. I'm a $1 billion television network is flying me to New York, having a car pick me up at the airport, taking me to a 5-star hotel so that I can talk on TV.
Isn't that crazy?
It's wild.
Hey, look, you and I are talking on the radio right now here in Hernando, Mississippi.
Right.
So you probably thought to yourself, wow, here I am in Hernando.
I am still confused at how I get to talk for a living.
Isn't it crazy?
Because it's not that my initial goal was to just be a newspaper reporter.
So that's what I was going to ask next. What was your initial goal coming out of college?
Okay.
Was just to be a writer.
So it's funny. You'll remember this. Back when we were in school, I don't know if they still have it, but there was the Miss Challenge beauty contest.
Oh, yeah.
At Horn Lake High School, right? And so my high school girlfriend was in the Miss Challenge competition. She actually won it. Not trying to brag, but she did win it. But the thing I remember about it is they would say, and this is so-and-so and so-and-so, and she's a junior, and she plans to go to Ole Miss and major in law, right? And then the next one would be and she plans to go to Tennessee and major in pharmacy, whatever. And then you go, okay, none of these people are actually going to do these things. And and most of them didn't. They would also introduce the escorts, and I escorted her. And they said, and her escort is Gary Parrish. He's a senior. And his goal is to go to the University of Memphis, major in journalism, and become a newspaper reporter. And that is exactly what I did. It happened exactly that way. Wow. Now, I was wildly naive in my approach. I was so ignorant to everything that I didn't even know my plan wasn't a good plan. It was stupid, but it was my plan. And my plan was, okay, there are bigger and better journalism schools, but I don't need those. I'm going to go to Memphis and cover Memphis sports, and then I'll be at the same places the commercial appeal's at, and I'll be so impressive that as soon as I graduate, they can't wait to hire me. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just be at the commercial appeal, and that'll be first off, 22-year-olds don't get hired at the commercial appeal or major metropolitan newspapers too often. So I didn't even realize that. And it's also like probably good that I didn't know this stuff because I would have talked myself out of all of it. I just didn't know any better.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right. So it works out. I go to Memphis. I'm at the campus newspaper. Literally first day at the campus newspaper, I break a big story that like was on the news that night. Mm. From that, the Memphis Flyer sports editor, a man named Dennis Freeland, who's no longer with us, reached out to me and he was like, hey, I don't know who you are, but that was impressive, the story that you did, and I would like to hire you to freelance for us at the Memphis Flyer. I said, this is amazing. I'm writing Memphis basketball stories for the Memphis Flyer. Next thing you know, commercial appeal is asking me, hey, could you freelance for us like on the weekends, cover high school sports, high school basketball game, football game, whatever. I say, this is amazing. I'm now working for the commercial appeal. And so after my junior year, I've built up all this stuff. Like I've written for the Memphis Flyer, written for the commercial appeal, written for this place, campus newspaper. I'm going to apply for all these internships for the summer after my junior year. This was my first humbling experience. I sent off the New York Times and the LA.
Yeah. Shoot big, man. Go for the stars.
The biggest ones.
Yeah.
And I would literally sit down with my roommates and I'd be like, so what do you think I'd do if it's, okay, I'm picking between LA Times, New York Times. Like on one hand, New York Times, more prestigious. On the other hand, summer in LA would be fun. These are the conversations I'm having. I probably applied to 20 different ones. I'd say 15 of them, form letters back. Thank you for your interest, but we're not interested.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't even respond, including the commercial appeal.
Yeah.
Didn't even respond. And I got one offer from the Birmingham Post-Herald.
How about that?
In Birmingham, Alabama, an afternoon newspaper that doesn't even exist anymore. So that's pretty humbling. You think you're great, or at least you have built yourself into thinking, I'm great.
Hey, why not me?
Why not me?
Why not?
Right? And then a bunch of people tell you, yeah, you're not what you think you are.
Sure.
And so I was like, I guess I'll just go to the Birmingham Post-Herald. That's all that's the option I got. It went well.
Yeah.
I come back. I'm still like, okay, the commercial bill they got me working every night that I can work. They got me out working. And I interpreted that as, this is how much they love me. They're not even using their actual reporters. They're sending me. In reality, I was cheap labor. They're paying me $45 with no benefits, no insurance.
Gary will do it. Give it to Gary.
I said, hey, Gary will do it and we owe him $45.
You're right.
Gary will work all night for $45.
Yeah, right.
I was just cheap labor. Long story, not so long. I graduate college. They do put me on an internship at the commercial appeal. At the same time, I'm in my last semester of college. I'm interning at the commercial appeal and I'm finishing up my degree. And this whole time I have assumed stupidly that as soon as I graduate, they'll hire me. I've been working with them for this point for 2 years. What I realized as this internship was about to expire is that at a corporation like that, they can like you as much as they like you. If they don't have a spot for you, they can't just...
Too bad.
Yeah, it's too bad, right? And I realized, oh my God, there's no job for me here. And at that point, it was like, I'm going to have to move. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. At that point, I had 2 other offers. Internship at the Arizona Republic in Phoenix, Arizona, or a newspaper in Riverside, California, going to pay me like $20,000 to move to California. Good luck. You have to live in a box.
Yeah, 20 grand isn't.
Yeah, that ain't going far. So I'm like, reality and depression is starting to hit me. And I swear to God, this is true. With about 2 weeks left in my internship, one of the prep reporters, the high school reporters at the commercial appeal, got into a physical altercation with the sports editor and they fired him. And I was just sitting there.
Hey man, I won't fight anybody.
I won't fight anybody. And I'm here. And football season's about to start. You need somebody.
Right.
They hired me. But here's the point. My plan worked perfectly.
Yeah.
But only because there was a physical altercation in the office 2 weeks before.
That means it was meant to be, Gary. That's the way I see it.
And so as I talk about my career, and this is a long way of answering your question, the initial goal was just to get hired at the commercial appeal and cover Tiger basketball.
Yeah.
Everything that's happened since then exceeds my expectations. But even the first thing, there's some luck in there. And every other thing that's happened for me, there's been some luck in there. So when I talk to younger people, journalism students, I tell my story because they want to know it. And then I say, that probably won't be your story. And if you learn one thing from my story, learn this. Yes, I guess you can't do all these things unless you have some talent.
Sure.
I say that humbly, but you have to have some ability.
Yep.
But I also had to have luck, a lot of luck, or else I don't know where I'm sitting right now. And that's something that I am always aware of.
There's something here that you hit on several things, and I have to make notes or else I will never remember. So one, Birmingham, just so you know, big following of Coach Camp down in Birmingham.
Okay.
So they're going to hear this.
Okay, great.
They're going to love that part.
It was a hard 3 months because I was coming out of a long relationship.
Yeah.
But it was, looking back on it, it didn't feel fun at the time because I just got broken up with and I was in Birmingham, Alabama all alone.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I really treasure those 3 months because it's the first time I lived alone. It's the first time I lived away from here. And I really learned some stuff about myself.
Those folks probably didn't know that about you. So that's going to be good.
No.
That's kind of a cool story there.
Yeah, no.
I actually have a big Alabama following. Florence and Foley. I don't know. It's just, I love Alabama.
Yeah.
So there we go. Just bring them on in. So that's one thing. The other thing I loved about what you said was that defeat was not an option in your mind. And I think to a point, even though it was kind of blissful ignorance in a sense that you just didn't understand or realize that failure was an option. I really feel like that's a story that everybody should at least a little bit consider anytime they're going after a goal. Understandably, you need to have some humility about you. And if you have some setbacks or failures, don't let that be the final chapter. Right. But for you, man, the focus was so intense that it was a wake-up call in a sense that the success wasn't coming. So I think there's a balance.
Right.
The balance needs to be this, though. Be so focused on your goals that you will not be dejected.
Right.
Defeat is not an option.
Right.
But in the end, also understand that it may not come as quickly as you want.
Right. And it might not come the way that you
Exactly.
thought.
Yeah.
Like I thought the way I would get a job at the Commercial Appeal is that I would be around them, be so talented and good that they couldn't wait to hire me. In reality, they had to hire me because they had to fire somebody else who got into an altercation with a sports editor. It really is that simple. If not for that, I don't get hired there and I don't know where I go. I think that is an important point about sometimes it's better not to know what's possible or likely or not, because there's a million stories, way bigger than mine, of people who just didn't realize they're acting irrationally with their dreams. I saw a story with John Krasinski, who is a star of The Office. And he said that he had moved to New York to become an actor. And it just it wasn't happening. He's like just auditioning for nothing. And he was like 2 weeks away from, saying, hey, I gave it my best shot. But I'm going to go. He even called his mom and he said, Mom, it's just not happening. I think it's time for me to come home. And she said, just give it another couple of months and let's see. And in those months, he got cast in The Office.
Wild.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
Kanye West, controversial figure today, but once upon a time, he was a producer who everybody said, you can't rap. You're not a rapper. Just shut up and make your beats.
Yeah.
And then he said, no, I'm a rapper. I'm going to be a rapper and I'm going to keep saying it until you listen to me. And he became the biggest rapper in the world. Then he wanted to get into fashion. People said, you're a rapper.
Yeah.
Stop it with the fashion. You stay in your lane. He said, I'm going to be the biggest thing in fashion. And he created a shoe that sold $1 billion worth of shoes. He became a billionaire because of it. He has undone a lot of that. But that's another thing where rationally, you're not supposed to be a producer who becomes the biggest rapper, a rapper who becomes biggest shoe guy. But he did all those things because he believed in himself. I actually didn't have that type of belief in myself. I was just misguided. I just thought that it was a lot easier than it was.
Yeah.
And it turns out.
So let me ask you this though: if you think that if that hadn't worked out for you at the Commercial Appeal, do you think you would have had the gusto to continue?
What I think is that I would have continued to try to put myself in the best position.
Yeah.
To allow for something to happen. I would not have quit. I just it would have been more challenging than I would have thought. That would have been the first time that this plan that I got, it ain't working. And I would have had to deal with that, but I would have dealt with it. And that is the one, because I don't ever want to chalk my entire career up to luck. The one pattern in there, like every step of the way.
Well, they talk about lucky breaks. So it was a lucky break.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself in position to get the lucky breaks.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
That is something I would have done no matter what. Because that is what the rest of my career has been, is me consistently putting myself in positions to get bigger and better opportunities. I thought, just to revisit my initial goal, that I'd be happy and satisfied if I ever got to work for my hometown newspaper. It's all I wanted.
Yeah.
The second I got it, I was covering high schools. Second I got it, I said, I want to do more than this.
Gotta go higher.
What's the best job at this paper? Covering Tiger basketball. then that's what I want to do. How do I get there? I've got to be so good at this that they say, we want you to do that. So I know most people don't care about your high school football stories and your high school basketball stories. I don't really read them today, whoever writes them, because it's not, it got nothing to do with me. But I put everything I had into that. Hey, I'm just the prep writer, but I'm going to try to be the best prep writer I can be. And from that, I got, I don't want to get too long-winded, but I broke one of the big...
It's a talk show. It's fine.
Yeah. So I said, okay, how can I be the best prep writer? This ain't the most glamorous job, but how can I be the best at it? I broke a big story within a couple of years of being at the Commercial Appeal that is still one of the biggest documented recruiting scandals in history. It got 3 football programs, including Alabama, put on probation. It got 3 different coaching staffs fired.
Wow.
It got 3 different men indicted with felonies, all 3 convicted, jail time. It was a big deal. You can Google it if you want to, the Albert Means recruiting scandal. I broke that story when I was very young. And from that, and this is just sort of how it goes, I got the reputation of being a young investigative reporter. I wasn't.
You were Andy Wise, man.
I was just somebody who got this story. That's all it was. I got this story.
Right.
It wasn't like I was now moving on to the next one, but I got that story. And because of that, the New York Daily News at the time, and I'll just run you through the whole thing. New York Daily News at the time was starting a sports investigative team. And they said, hey, there's this young guy. And they didn't really know I was a young guy. You got to remember this pre-Facebook, before you could just Google everybody and know everything about him.
Sure.
So they said, there's a guy in Memphis just broke this big recruiting scandal. Maybe we should talk to him. I get however it happened, email, phone call from the New York Daily News. They want to interview me for a position on the sports investigative team. It's going to be a 2-person sports investigative team. I go and interview with them. I fly to New York. Meet with them in Midtown Manhattan, Rue 57, right there on 57th. I still see it all the time. I think about this moment every time I see it. I meet with the sports editor of the New York Daily News. She's a woman. I sit down. She goes, because again, no Facebook. Now, this is all pre that. She goes, can I ask you a question? I said, of course. She said, how old are you? And I was like, 23, 24, however old I was. She said, we don't hire people this young at the New York Daily News. She said, I had no idea how young you were. And I said, yeah. I was like, I don't, you just graduated college a couple years ago, got the store, whatever. And so afterwards, I call my wife, I leave this interview. And literally the first thing they told me was, we don't hire people your age. Get out to the restaurant, call my wife. She said, what do you think? I said, well, the first thing they said was that we can't believe how young you are and we don't hire people your age. She said, oh. She said, so what do you think? And I said, I think they're going to offer me the job.
Yeah.
I said, I think they'll still offer. And she was like, oh. And I was like, what's wrong? What's going on? You don't seem excited. This was supposed to be something we were like, whoo, what if? Yeah. And now you don't seem excited. Literally the same day I was interviewing, she found out she was pregnant with her first son. Okay. So I do get offered the job. They come back and they offer me the job. And I already knew what the first assignment was going to be. We talked about it in that detail. The Mets and Yankees were both looking at getting new publicly funded stadiums. So they wanted me to take the job and go to Arlington, Texas and look at the Rangers stadium, and then go to Oakland and look at this, just fly around the country, investigate stadium funding, and try to write a big picture story about what this means, which means I'm not going to be home a lot. So my still young, from Mississippi, best friend's her mom, wife, is going to move to New York with me. And then I'm going to be gone and she's pregnant. I was like, I know how this ends. It ends with me coming home from a road trip and she's back in Mississippi. And now I'm sending child support checks by.
Yeah.
I just said, God, this is crazy that New York Daily News just offered me a job. I don't think I can take it. But before I turned it down, I went to the Commercial Appeal and I said, I got a job for the New York Daily News and I'm thinking about taking it. But if you'll make me the Tiger basketball beat writer, I'll stay.
Man, look at you.
And they made me the Tiger basketball beat writer.
And what year was that?
2006.
Okay.
5, maybe 2005. They made me the full-time Tiger basketball beat writer. And then I did that this is much earlier than that, 2002. And then I did that for 4 years. And then I got the call from CBS Sports. And the truth is, how about this? On that first interview, because the 4 finalists were at the time, me, Jeff Goodman, who, has worked at ESPN, Fox Sports, worked everywhere. Pete Thamel, who's now on ESPN, and Mark Schlabach, who's now on ESPN. Those were the 4 finalists. It was Jeff Goodman from Fox Sports, Pete Thamel from, at the time, New York Times, Mark Schlabach from, at the time, Washington Post, and Gary Parrish from the Commercial Appeal. It's very much one of these things is not like the others, but they still wanted to talk to me for some reason. So I get it on the interview. It's the first interview is like a conference call, 3 people. and the assistant sports editor, guy named Craig Stanky, he said, gets to him, he goes, I don't want this to offend you, but it's just something I feel like it's an appropriate question to ask. I said, please do. He said, and I quote, he said, if you're so GD good, why are you at the commercial appeal still? And I said, that is a very reasonable question to ask. And I told him the story I just told you. Yeah. I chose my family over the New York Daily News a few years ago.
Not an easy choice.
No.
And when you're 20-something and chasing a dream.
When I've always been driven.
But it was the right choice.
I think so.
Obviously.
And I knew it then.
Yeah.
But you do go, am I ever going to get an opportunity like this again?
Right.
And my wife and I talked, and I said, well, I'm going to turn this one down because I think it's best for us. And I'm just scared to, there's too much going on right now. I'm scared it'll be a disaster. But at some point, we will probably have to move if I'm going to have everything out of my career that I want. And she understood that. So, but I told them at CBS, I said, here's the thing. I could have been at the New York Daily News for the past 4 years. Yeah. I turned it down because I didn't feel, and now we're off and running. And so.
Surely they respected that.
Of course. I think it helped me in the interview.
I would think.
And it answered an obvious question. Why is he still here?
Yeah.
So we can't hire the guy from the Commercial Appeal. Well, the guy at the Commercial Appeal wouldn't be the guy at the Commercial Appeal, except for his wife got pregnant at the same time he was offered the job and decided to stay. So they then, in the spirit of honesty, they offered the job to Pete Thamel. That's who CBS wanted to hire. He decided to stay at the New York Times, and then I took the job. They offered it to me next, and Pete and I are still close friends to this day. So just think about those stories.
Yeah.
The luck involved. There has to be a fight for me to even get the first job at the Commercial Appeal. I have to, luckily, on some level, break a big story to even get interviewed by the New York Daily News.
Yeah.
I have to interview well to get them to offer the job. Then I have to turn it down, but use it as leverage to get the Tiger basketball beat job. And then if Pete Thamel doesn't turn down the CBS job, who knows where I'm at that point or where I go from there. I'd like to think I'd still end up in a similar spot because I was continuing to put myself in good positions and then work as hard at these jobs to try to get the next big one. But you don't know that. And
but your dots connect. And I think ultimately, and this is where Motivate with Coach Camp comes into play, right? So the motivator speaker is going to fly out of my mouth right now. I want everybody out there that's listening to this story right now to just take pause for a second, because here's what I hear from you. And I think this is true to form for a lot of people. Either A, you have a dream and an ambition or an idea, and you talk yourself out of it because you see all of the ways that you could fail.
That's right.
B, you have the personality that you can only see the upside. And so you are usually successful at most things you go after because you pour your heart and soul into it. And the one time that a person ends up having a misstep, it could be so detrimental they don't know how to pick themselves back up. That's the B side. The C side is this. The balance to life, I think, is so key. You need to be ambitious. You need to set your goals high. You need to shoot for the stars. And in the end, you also have to have that tenacity about you and the realization that, hey, if this moment doesn't work out, that doesn't mean that there's not another moment around the corner. Right. You just got to keep working because you don't know what's about to happen next. Right. That's what you just told me.
That's right. And I will say there's another thing that I've noticed as my career progressed is that I kept moving the goalpost on myself.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
I said,
absolutely,
all I want to do is get hired at the Commercial Appeal. If that ever happens, I'll be happy. Soon as it happened, I wasn't happy because I didn't have the best job at the Commercial Appeal. I said, all right, now I want to be the Tiger basketball beat writer at the Commercial Appeal. If I ever get that, then I'll be happy and satisfied. That's all I want. I got it quickly. I was not happy. I said, you know what I really would like is if I could get one of these big television networks, ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, to hire me to be a online college basketball columnist on a national level. If I ever get that, I'd be happy. Then I got that, still wasn't happy. I said, why am I not on TV? Why am I just writing? Why don't they put me on TV?
Well, they told me I have a face for radio.
Well,
that's what they told me.
Yeah, well, I did. Well, I'm okay, so now I ask the question, why did they put me on TV with this face? But at the time it was like, why can't I get on TV?
Yeah.
If I ever get that, I'll be happy. And at this, and then it's like, okay, but so you keep you get what you got and then you keep looking up what's next. What can I do next? But I have reached a point, and I think it's very important to aspire and reach and want more. I think it's also important at some point to say, enough's enough. You've done well, and you don't have to keep searching for happiness in the next big thing.
Can I add a dot to you?
Please.
I want to put a dot on this because I think that when you connect dots, sometimes you got to circle back on it. here's where you are, Gary. You started this whole interview. We started talking about stuff. You immediately led with the humility that you have of realizing where you are and where you've come from, and that the whole thing just kind of doesn't make sense how you could start out here and now here's where you've made it to in life. And then you also just covered a lot of areas where you worked hard, but then at the same time you needed some breaks kind of go your way. And that happened, obviously. And now you're even talking about the plateau of life where you don't want to stay complacent. You got to always try to strive to be a better person, to grow yourself. And so much of this relates to me in the sense, and I'm just gonna actually bring this all the way back around to how this is motivational for anybody out there, in that for myself, whether it was in EMS or fire or teaching, and then now doing my own broadcast stuff, it was like this. I had to be at the best I could be, because in the end, I knew that was the best representation of myself.
That's right.
What I didn't know at the time when I was running marathons, completing Ironman triathlons, was it really wasn't all about me growing myself. It was about how can I make the best version of me so that at some point in my life, I can turn around and help that next generation come along and be the best generation that they can be. And that's what you're doing.
I hope so.
I think you are.
I hope so. What I've learned is that probably for, certainly throughout my teenage years and then into my 20s and my 30s, it was like I'm just wanting, no matter what I had, I wanted more. And I have finally reached a point where if it never gets better than this, it doesn't mean I still don't want big things and I still don't work hard every day. But if it never gets better than where it is right now, I have done better than 99.9% of the people who pursue a career in this profession. And I've exceeded all expectations I could have had for myself, or anybody, frankly, could have had for me. Go back and talk to our high school principal, our high school teachers.
I did. Milton actually came on.
I promise you, and I haven't. I've seen Milton within the past few years, but not recently. But Mr. Kirkendall, I think he liked me.
He did.
I don't think he would have anticipated me flourishing.
He came on this show. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
I had to share with him. I said, you're one of two people on earth that has the dubious honor at this point to still be alive that have whooped my tail.
There you go. There you go.
Him and my mama.
Yeah. So when you go back and Coach Ferguson was my baseball coach, Jim Ferguson at Horn Lake High. He's now my son's principal at North Point.
That's wild, isn't it?
So I see him basically every day, and I wasn't.
Let me ask you, what kind of student were you?
Not great. How about this? Every book we were supposed to read in high school, I have now read, but I didn't read it when we were supposed to, but I went back. I became a much better student in college than I was in high school, because I think that was the real, okay, no more,
Gary, I'm doing a whole thing with high school coming up. And I got 3 high schoolers coming on, and I know why I struggled so much. Well, one of the reasons, distractions.
Yes.
And now think about the distractions our kids are facing. So it's just
it's even, we are raising now a generation on iPads and social media. And it's the first generation being raised on this. From the day they've been old enough to hold something, they have held an iPad. Yeah. And I'm fascinated to find out the impact that has on people. I'm confident it's not good. Yeah. And so, we didn't even have those distractions, but we still had, we were running around, maybe now kids are, playing on Instagram all day. And 30 years ago, we were more likely to build a bonfire and get a bunch of Miller Lite out there or whatever.
Sure.
But there's tons I just didn't take school seriously. I was way more interested in trying to have fun with my buddies than to have a good GPA. I probably graduated middle of the pack in my high school class.
I was probably closer to the back of the pack.
Yeah.
But I think that's another inspirational story too, is that wherever you end up in life early in your days, there's time to correct that.
Yeah.
You don't have to always think, well, this is who I'm going to be. There's so many examples of success stories out of Horn Lake. Shane Sisson, a good friend of ours, dude's flying planes for major airline stuff. And he was definitely a low performer like us, not because he wasn't smart, obviously. And I think that's a common thread too, is it's not like we weren't smart enough. We just didn't apply ourselves. Or at least I didn't. I know I did not apply myself.
I tested smart, in terms of spotlight and all that stuff, whatever that means, but I did not apply myself. So I think any teacher that had me in middle school, high school would probably tell you saw potential, but a little too wild for my liking. We'll see.
Yeah.
But I did reach a point where I was totally dedicated to trying to become what I wanted to be. Yeah. When I was in college, I delivered pizzas maybe once or twice a week, but I was in that newspaper building on the University of Memphis campus every night. We did newspapers that came out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, and I was there till midnight.
You're grinding.
I was waking up and going to class at like 9, 10, and 11, and then get something to eat, go straight to the journalism building, be there till midnight, do the whole thing again the next day. I would have, and then I would, on the nights that I'd have off, I'd go work for the Commercial Appeal for $45. And I'd have classmates who would be bartending at Applebee's making $150 a night. And I was in half the time. But I was only making $45 for all night. And you go, God, what? Like, I don't have any money. I'm broke. I'm like, I can remember like sitting in a bar and you call 1-800-REGENS to see if you got enough money on your debit card to get one more drink. Like, that's where I was. But what happened was when I graduated, even though I didn't have the best GPA, and even though I'm not certain I was the most talented person there, I had done more stuff to show people.
Yeah.
I was presented with opportunities, and I had a lot of friends who graduated with the same journalism degree I had, but they couldn't prove the work. They could make a drink at Applebee's and make a lot of money, for a college person, but they didn't have the work. So I spent every minute of every day for at least a couple of years, my junior and senior year, totally focused on this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. But up until that point, I was pretty lackluster.
Well, look, I'm going to say this. So you've touched on a few things just now. Right before we go to a break, I want to point out, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the meat of where Gary is now in CBS, and I've got some big questions I want to ask you. But you just talked about the fact that once you found your passion, you stayed the course, you were willing to grind, you were willing to work hard, and you were willing to dream big. It's not enough to dream. You got to put the work in, and all those things mattered, and it brought you to where you are today. And now that's the thing I know some of these listeners are like, man, are you going to hit on any of his stuff he's talking about in basketball? Yes, I am. So we're going to take a quick break from a sponsor, and we'll be right back.
A great opportunity awaits. The Motivate with Coach Camp podcast is now in its second season, and we are excited to say that we have listeners all over the United States and in 19 countries. If you have a company and you're interested in some very affordable advertising while at the same time supporting a great cause, please go to motivatewithcoachcamp.com and fill out that sponsorship page, and we'll get right back to you. You can support the podcast through donations on Venmo at Motivate with Coach Camp. Thank you to all the listeners and guests who have blessed this podcast with their engagement and involvement.
All right, welcome back. And just before we went to break, talking here to Mr. Gary Parrish, we were just about to hit into how he got into CBS and how he started down that road. And ultimately, sir, you love basketball.
I do.
Did you play basketball?
Never.
Isn't that something? Wow.
I mean, I pick up a ball and like shoot, at an apartment complex or something, or in my buddy's driveway. But I never, I should, just for the record, I think I played one season of like 9-year-old, rec basketball.
But you play baseball.
I grew up playing baseball and soccer. I was legitimately good at soccer. I was good enough at baseball to like be a starter on a high school team.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating for some people to realize I am a quote unquote national basketball analyst, but I never really played basketball. And so the question I get sometimes is, well, then why?
That's where we were going next. Why basketball? Why not baseball?
Okay, because baseball is my favorite sport still to this day. Yeah. It's the one I enjoy watching the most. It's the one I can't say it's the one I follow but I'm a lifelong Mets fan, so I follow the Mets like I live and die with it. So why basketball? It's a great question, and it is tied to my ambition and nothing more than that.
Okay.
It's because my first job was at the Commercial Appeal, and the best job you could have at the Commercial Appeal in sports was covering Tiger basketball. Yeah. When I got hired. I often say if my first job would have been at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, I'd have probably said, I want the best. What's the best job here? Covering the Cardinals. Okay, well, I'd have probably become a baseball writer. If my first job would have been at the Austin American-Statesman, I would have said, what's the best job here? Covering Texas football. Okay, well, then I'd probably been a football writer. The reason I pursued basketball is nothing more than this. It was the best job I could get at the place I was working, so I set my sights on it and said, go get that job.
Well, I know sometimes you'll see announcers, writers, opinion polls, folks. I can't think of Stephen A. Yeah. Those guys, they'll not just hit on just one sport. Sure. They'll talk about others. Have you ever had opportunities?
Yeah. My local show, which is the Gary Parrish Show, was on 92.9 FM ESPN for 13 years. We moved it to Grind City Media, owned by the Grizzlies this year. And that's just me talking about legitimately whatever I want. The NBA, college basketball, Taylor Swift. It's up to me.
Yeah.
And I talk about, it's me for 90 minutes every day at 10 a.m., talking about whatever I want. I guest host a show all the time for CBS Sports Network called Time to Shine. The actual host is Adam Shine. And it's a 30-minute all sports show. And I'm basically the guy when Adam's taking vacation, they fly me up and I host in his absence. So that's another one where I'm talking about the NFL. Like we're mostly talking about the NFL.
Okay.
So yes, I am equipped now to talk about, I don't want to say anything because you can't just hit me with random NHL questions. But I've always told this, it's like if you had to take like doing that 30-minute television show is a little bit like prepping for a test. Like I need to study for this. It's not stuff I already know. And so you just tell me the topics of what I'm going to be talking about. Give me a few hours. And by the time we turn the lights on, it's going to sound like I know everything about everything. But this morning I didn't. What are we talking about today? This guy got a new contract. This guy did this. This team did that. Okay, study. Got it. Let's do the show. Sounds like I know everything. Wake up the next day, get a new rundown. Bunch of stuff on it I don't know nothing about.
Yeah.
Study, go perform, go do the show. And so I've always told people, I hope this doesn't sound cocky or arrogant. It's just like, if you give me time, I don't know anything about the NHL, but if you said, GP, we need you to host an NHL show tomorrow for 30 minutes, and here's the time, I could do it.
You'd do it. Yeah.
I could do it because I just prepare for it and I would read, collect my thoughts and then do it. So I do get the opportunity to do all sports and I enjoy doing that. But the reason I am mostly known as a basketball analyst, basketball columnist is because
your roots.
My first employer, the best job you could get there was basketball. And so that's
obviously you grew from there. So, I think that you're not sounding cocky whenever you say that you feel confident that you can do those things, because I think that is your talent. A person that has a talent, they cultivate that talent, they do become very comfortable in it. And I've had a few opportunities in my life, at least to feel like I got to a point of expertise. And that was one of those was EMS and fire. Who would have thought that, right? I'm responsible for people's lives. My teachers would have been like, oh my God, no, please no. And then now that I've kind of gotten into a little bit more of a public setting, doing speeches, going different places. And then of course, doing some shows, I feel very confident. A person can give me a topic, and like much to what you're saying, give me just a little bit of time to kind of look it over, and I feel like I can go and speak to it. I may not be perfect or as expertise as somebody, but in the end, we can have a conversation.
That's the thing. Like if I do have a skill, it's like I can talk, and that has always been a skill of mine. It's just been used in different places. But I can remember like cafeteria table at school, and they'd be like, "Hey, Gary, tell that story about that time." Or we'd be at a bar and table and it's 8 people and it'd be like, "Hey, tell that story." Like I could always command people's attention just with my mouth, just telling a story or being goofy or being thoughtful, whatever. That's something I've always been able to do. And so I am still shocked to this day that I've been presented with these opportunities. I still can't believe I do what I do for a living at the level at which I'm allowed to do it. But what is not shocking to me, if I'm being honest, is that I can do it.
Yeah.
I've always been able to do it. Even if you can do it, you don't expect all this stuff to come with it.
Look, I'm living the moment, right? So I'm living the moment. I'm not Gary Parrish right now. I'm Motivated with Coach Camp, and we're a small town, but we are growing.
Right.
And in the end, I don't know where this will be in 10 years. Maybe in 10 years, I'm doing none of this stuff. Maybe I'm just old and crusty somewhere. Right. But I feel very good and very comfortable in this moment. I feel like that this is definitely a calling of mine. Right. And just like this conversation, you had just a little bit of prep. And I knew coming into it. So we are rolling into this hour, and it feels like it's only been 5 minutes to me. So this is definitely a strong suit for you. I knew that was going to be
now. If I have a downside, and for people listening, you haven't noticed, I could get a little long-winded.
No, that's no long-winded, buddy.
Tighten it up a little bit. But I've always been confident in my ability to communicate. And my wife would tell you I'm better at it professionally than I am personally.
Oh, God, my wife would be right there with you. She's all the time. She's like, you got 1,000 words, don't use them on me.
Well, that's what I always tell her. Because, like any couple, you'll have a disagreement about something. And she'll say, I just don't know what you mean. And I'll say something like, I am a professional communicator. It's not my fault if you don't know what I mean. I am speaking clear. This is what I do for a living is I make points. I construct arguments. And she'll be like, shut up. You might be good at it at basketball, but you're terrible at it.
You're in this house right now, mister.
In this house, I don't want to hear how good you are at communicating. But I have always been able to communicate, I think.
So my next question then, so you go into this. By the way, this is not even a question. It's just a caveat. I'm throwing this in there. By the way, you know Tim Simpson was on the show. Do you know Tim?
We have been in the same room.
Yeah.
We've met, but I don't know him well.
Man, he's a great dude, by the way. He does impersonations.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He dropped voices on me. I'm like, he started doing like different impersonations. I'm like, that is amazing. I was like, one of them was like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't remember. Yeah. Anyways, I just threw that in there as an ADD moment. So going back to your speaking and going to CBS, I know that you remember this. I know you do. And I don't know anything about it. So that's why I'm wanting to know too. What was it like the very first time you sat down, cameras are on you, and you know that you're about to be opened up to the world?
I honestly don't remember the first time I was on television.
Are you serious?
I don't.
That is wild.
I don't. I remember that they eased into it. And it's sort of interesting because, again, I was just a writer. Now I write less than I do anything. Most of my job is connected to me talking on camera. I host a college basketball podcast for CBS Sports. I'm in studio for CBS Sports. I host the Gary Parrish show for Grind City Media. I'm a talker now. I still write, but not as much. But one thing, it's just like anything else. One thing leads to another. So I'm a writer covering Tiger basketball. And local radio hosts say, hey, well, we want the Tiger basketball beat writer on because he can tell us about John Calipari's team. And so I would just be a guest. And then Chris Vernon, who people might see on the Grizzlies broadcast and stuff. He hosts,
I don't know him.
But he hosted a show. He's one of my best friends, and he hosted a show at the time. We were both young, and this will sort of circle back and connect some dots. We were both around the same age, and he, same deal. He's at Sports 56, just foot in the door, producing shows, behind the scenes stuff. Badly wanted a show. They wouldn't give him anything of substance yet, but they said, hey man, if you want to do a Friday night show for 2 hours from 7 to 9, knock yourself out. What do we care? Yeah. He was like, I'll do anything. So then this all coincides with my wife being pregnant for that first time. I've turned down the New York Daily News. I'm the Tiger basketball beat writer. And my wife and I, when we started dating and early in our relationship, we lived downtown, and we were just downtown, young people living downtown. When we got pregnant, we moved to the suburbs. So my life changed dramatically.
I would imagine.
I went from I'm not exaggerating, nor am I proud, but I was in the bars every night to now I'm off Hacks Cross in Olive Branch. And so Chris Vernon would be like, hey man, could you come on my show on Friday night? And I'm like, I got nothing else to do. I don't, my wife is pregnant. I'm sitting in the suburbs. Sure. And we realized from that we had chemistry. We laughed at the same stuff. So then he gets his show on during the day, and he says, hey, it'd be great. Why don't you come on one day a week with me? We'll call it Gary Parrish Wednesdays, and you'll just sit in studio. And from that, people started going, oh, well, this guy can talk. I thought he was just a writer, but he's actually talking, telling stories. Yeah. And then I get offered a radio job. And then that leads to a bigger radio job. And then that leads to at CBS Sports, hey, why don't you host our podcast? And then it leads to at CBS Sports, they say, well, the guy, he's pretty good on the podcast, and he sounds like he can talk on the radio. He don't look like people we put on TV, but he looks like maybe somebody we should give a shot. That's how that happens. Yeah. They hear me talking other places. They hired me to be a columnist. You go look at my first contract at CBS Sports. It says nothing about TV. It's just write columns for CBSSports.com. You go look at my new contract, my latest contract, it says almost nothing about .com. It's everything about television. Yeah. So, I remember it being infrequent at first, and that gets real hard because all these other people who are on TV, and keep in mind, this is CBS Sports. Most people start the NBC affiliate in Meridian, Mississippi.
Right. Yeah.
The first time
major network.
The first time I ever talked on television was on CBS. What are we doing?
Yeah. You're nationwide.
And so I'm surrounded by people who are actually they did climb their way here. They've been working in TV for 20 years. They worked at the local affiliate in Syracuse, and then they moved to St. Louis. And now so I'm on a set with people who've been doing this a lot longer than me, people who do it together every day. And I'm just sort of thrown in there for one night, 2 nights. Yeah. And it's I'm not comfortable. I don't know what to do. And by the way, talking on radio podcast, dramatically different than talking on TV. Sure. Right now, you ask me a question, I might talk for 3 minutes. On TV, you ask me a question, I got about 25 seconds. Then it's time to move on. So I remember not being comfortable at first, but finally, I guess, I've never had this conversation with my bosses, but I'm assuming they saw enough to know if we put this guy into rotation and get him here, give him the reps, then we might have something.
I would like to use a baseball analogy to that. I think it's like that guy that comes up from AAA. He's really good, got all the tools to be great.
Yeah.
But he's just a spot player.
There you go.
They're like, hey, look, we need to give him some regular. Put him at third base every day.
There you go.
Bam.
They put me at third base every day, to follow the analogy, and I don't know if I'm good or not, but they've kept me. And so now my schedule during the season is on Mondays, starting very soon. I'll be flying to New York every single day, and then I come home I'm there in studio Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and then come home Thursday. I've been doing that schedule for like 4 months at a time for several years now, and it's a weird way to live, but I'm so much more comfortable now on TV than I ever was before. Like,
sure.
And I always tell people when they ask whether it's just what we're doing, or actually like a visual component, people say, how do you get comfortable? And the only way to get comfort, and I bet you would agree with this, you have to keep doing it. You have to do
100%.
it. You do it because these microphones scare people who've never been around.
Dude, I've had guests in here shaking.
That's the thing. You could take whoever your best friend was from high school, who you've been knowing your whole life and talking to forever, and you guys could be cutting up and it's comfortable and you're laughing and everything's cool. You turn these mics on and they change because they're not used to it. And it gets to people. And the only way you ever get over that is you just keep doing it.
It's like everything in life, man.
You just got to keep doing it and keep doing it. And I swear you and I could have the same conversation without these mics. It would not sound any different than this. On TV now, I get in my chair. I'm aware of the cameras, but they don't bother me. Sure. I'm just talking. And that desk job that I do, it's actually pretty easy when you simplify it. Mm-hmm. All I'm doing here, like being a host is complicated. You got a producer in your ear. They're telling you to go here. They're telling you got to get to a break. They're telling you some breaking news. That's a real skill. If you simplify what it is I do for at least CBS Sports in that desk setting, I'm just listening to somebody. Ask me a question.
Conversation.
And I just have to answer the question in about 30 to 35 seconds. If you simplify it, forget about the cameras, forget you're on TV, your friend's going to ask you a question and then just answer it to the best of your ability. That's all it is.
Yeah. For me, I know personally, it started out early in my life. I was in some plays. What year did you graduate?
95.
You're a little behind me.
Yeah.
So you weren't there probably.
So you were like 91, 92?
92.
Yeah.
Were you there in 92?
Yeah. No, I remember you being.
Did you go to Godspell? That was like my big moment.
I feel like I did.
It was a play.
I feel like I did.
Yeah, I crushed it. I don't know. I feel like I was really good. I did a rap song in that thing.
I have no memory of it, but I'm sure you were great. I have no memory of it.
So that was kind of like my introduction to being in front of people and being a fool. And it was really easy to be a fool and not worry about it.
Right.
I don't know if you remember this. So I went to Northwestern there, and I was the only male cheerleader for 2 years.
I would not have, if somebody asked me, who was the only male cheerleader at Northwest who we went to high school with, I would not have said Chris Camp. Yeah. But as you say that, I remember that.
I was groundbreaking. There was no other guys there, and I'm like, you know what? This is like open.
I do remember
I have
that.
all the girls to me now, so this is cool.
I do remember
I'm on
that.
the inside.
No, like the joke's on us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So in the end, what I'm getting at is getting in front of people. You're right. The more you do it, the easier it is. And now, obviously, I teach at college, so then it's like I'm constantly having to present stuff and getting onto a radio. It becomes natural. But I was curious about the TV aspect because that's not something I've done a lot of, a little bit, but not a lot. And I just wonder if you're constantly sitting there, but you get makeup on. So you're probably beautiful.
I'm as good as they can make me.
Yeah, which is probably fine.
We always joke because like I really am. I say this somewhat tongue in cheek or jokingly, but like there's also like I'm the ugliest person there. And
you're probably beautiful.
And so I walk into the makeup room and it's like these people who look like they should be on TV, and then it's me. And I'm always like, hey, can you make me look like him? And they're like, well, he's 15 years younger than you and he's got hair. Yeah. So probably not, but we'll do our best. We'll do our best. So yes, they do the best they can. And, you're just appreciative of the opportunity.
Sure. So a couple quick fire questions as we get close here to the end, which I could talk to you for another 5 or 6. So we can do a whole series. So in interviews, do you have like star hung on this one? Like who's your favorite person you've ever interviewed?
You know what?
Maybe tough answer.
No, it is a tough answer because a lot of the interviews you do as a basketball columnist are just going to be like, it's quick stuff after games. And what I enjoy more is actually talking to people for long periods of time, getting to know them and getting them to tell me things they might not be comfortable telling other people. So I don't really do that anymore. Like it's not my job description anymore. Yeah. But there was a time in my job where I might really think about the story idea, and then I'll go spend maybe 3 days with somebody and really get them to open up and get them to be comfortable and hopefully tell me enough stuff that they've never said before that can make for an interesting story. And so sure, I've interviewed the biggest of the big, Mike Krzyzewski. I spent every day for 4 years with John Calipari, talking to him like basically every day. Bill Self, Jim Boeheim, Bobby Knight, you name all the basketball figures.
The old Bobby, huh?
Yeah, I've been through all of that. When I think of what did I just really enjoy, and this is sad, it might seem a little twisted up, but I randomly heard about this Division II assistant basketball coach who, this is all I heard. I didn't know the guy. He was on his way to his wedding, like literally on the way to the wedding, him and his bride-to-be, and it was raining. They hit water, hydroplane, crashed. She died. And he was back coaching. And I was just sort of, I don't know what drew me to that. It's an awful story, but I was like, I'd like to go see this person. I can't imagine what it's like to go through what he's going through. And so I went to somewhere in Georgia. I don't remember Dalton, Georgia, maybe. He worked at Dalton State. His name is John Redmond. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, first, my condolences. I'm so sorry. It's heartbreaking, but, and I don't even know if this is inappropriate or not, but I'd love to come just see you and talk to you. And maybe if you're interested and comfortable. And he was very interested and very comfortable. And I just went there and spent 3 days with him, 2 days with him. And he opened up and I got to write one of the stories I'm most proud of that I've written ever. And I really enjoyed him talking me through the entire process, the range of emotions. So that's not a person you've ever heard of. I think he's an assistant coach at Delta State now. So it's not a person you've ever heard of, and he's not a famous person, but I got everything out of that I wanted.
Yeah.
I got a man to open up to me about heartbreak and tragedy and tell a story that I think could help other people. I loved that part of it. And I've done that same thing with some other basketball coaches. Shaka Smart. I did a big story on Shaka Smart where he told me things he had never told people before. I did a big story on Tom Crean at Indiana where he talked about things he had never talked about before. Outside of sports, there's a rapper named Killer Mike that I was lucky enough to spend some time with. He's in a hip hop duo called Run the Jewels, and he's just a really smart and thoughtful guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. So my favorite interviews aren't with the most famous people I've ever talked to. They're with people that I connect with and find interesting, and we actually get some substance out of it.
Gary, that's why I know you listen back to my episodes of last season. You're going to love them because it's people coming on telling personal stories. Just exactly what you're saying.
That's what I like.
I was at a school not long ago. I was at Lewisburg, and the kids, they started asking me about the guest I've had on, and, I've had quite a few people come on. Some of them, fairly big names in that. And I was like, well, they were like, who was your favorite? And I said, well, it's odd that you would ask that because my favorite was, and when I say favorite, I mean like the story itself was mind boggling. In fact, I found myself not being a host. I was being an audience member.
Gotcha.
I was just like, wow.
Right.
I was like, you got to say something in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that means your mouth has to move. It was a World War II vet.
Oh wow, yeah.
That had spent 26 months as a POW by the Germans, and he's just telling the story, and I'm just like, oh my God,
that's the stuff.
Amazing.
I am a talker by profession. I really enjoy listening.
Yeah.
I like listening to people with interesting stories. It doesn't mean I like listening to famous people.
Sure.
Although I'm lucky enough to talk to a lot of famous people. Like I could throw out all the names to impress you, but those aren't the ones that I carry around with me.
Well, I was just curious who your favorite one was.
Yeah,
and when you answered it very well.
When you think of it, I have interviewed super famous people, and the thing that popped into my head was a conversation over several days that I had with somebody who is, relatively speaking, completely anonymous. I like listening as much as I like talking and telling stories. I really enjoy listening to other people tell stories about things that I have never been through or could possibly imagine. World War II vet, POW.
Sure.
That checks that box.
Dude. He's
and
amazing.
like losing your wife on the way to the wedding.
That's an incredible, difficult story of struggle that you're absolutely right. Somebody needs to hear that to know that there can be a tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because they've been through that. Somebody else has been through those types of moments. And that's a whole lot of what we do, man. Yeah. And the famous people aside, sometimes it is important to hear people's stories like yours that have this elevated level of success, but people need to know where you came from. I knew where you came from.
Right.
But other people need to know that. And so if they're aspiring to do that, realize that, dreams can come true. Life can happen the way you want it to, but you have to work at it. And in the end, everybody has a story that someone else can learn from.
I do think I'm a good example of that. Like, listen, I guess I have some talent, but I'm not the most talented person. I don't think I'm the smartest person. I have no advantage whatsoever to get into this world.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people getting into professions because their fathers or mothers, or they had some door. I had no door.
Yeah.
My parents are awesome. My father has passed. My mother's still with us. They're both incredible. Worked hard, loved for me and my brother, but they couldn't help me in my career in any way whatsoever. Everything I had to do, I had to go do against all odds.
Sure.
And I think hopefully there's a lesson in there, not just for Rant, but like I hope my own children see that. I'm
absolutely.
I'm not the best example for them in every way. You can't be when you're spending half the week, 4 months of the year in New York City. You to have this career, we should say this, to have the career I have, you sacrifice stuff.
You got
you
to.
do.
Yeah,
you miss things. You do. And yes, that causes confliction at times. Like there are times where I'm living this amazing life or having this incredible career, and if I'm being honest with you, I don't know if I'm doing what I ought to be doing. Hey, it's great that I got these jobs and I got this house, but like, what is all this stuff worth if I wouldn't have my kid's baseball game yesterday, right? So I struggle with that on some level. But what I hope, if my kids can see any good out of that, is that, man, our father had dreams and he pursued them relentlessly, and he actually accomplished them and exceeded them. And if he would have told you when he was 18 years old that he wanted to be all these things, by the time he was, and I was most of these things in my 30s. Now I'm in my 40s. But if 18-year-old me would have told anybody, even my own parents, who I hope believed in me, hey, this is what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to end up, hey, we're watching CBS Sports right now. I'm going to do that.
I'm doing that, yeah.
It would have sounded ridiculous because it's just like, yo, you're from Horn Lake. Why don't you just
Derek Jeter said that. He's like, I'm going to play shortstop for the Yankees when he got older.
Yeah, but like, okay, well, my first dream was actually to play second base for the Mets.
Okay.
But for most of us who have athletic dreams, you realize at some point, can't.
The Yankees lost I sent my thing in a long time ago.
Right, you can't do it. With this, it was like my dreams would have sounded. And keep in mind, I've already said these weren't even my dreams. Yeah. But if I would have said at 18 years old, I think that's what I'm going to do, it would have been like, yeah, hey, maybe, but more likely, just based on your zip code, you're going to be hanging drywall,
Yeah. So that does lead me to this. And look, you can see my notes, brother. It says, if you would not have been doing broadcasting, what do you think you would have been doing?
I honestly have no idea. I have thought about this sometimes.
So funny you led to that. That was perfect.
Because I don't know what I don't know what else I'd be happy doing. And that is one of the things I really enjoy about my career, is that when I was young, I remember my father, every time somebody asked him, hey, how you doing? You bump into him and say, hey, how you doing? What's up? He'd always say, his go-to answer every time was like, oh, only 32 more years till I retire. Only 26 years old till I retire.
Yeah.
Only 15 more years till I retire. And it was just sort of his go-to saying. I never really put much thought into it. But at one point I had this realization, like, he's literally counting down his life.
Yeah.
Like he's just trying to get through work to get to this next thing. And I was like, I don't want to be like that. And so I found something I had a passion for, and I pursued it, and it's worked out. But I would have told you it was working out for me when I was making $55,000 a year doing it. I would have said, it's worked out. I'm happy. And this is, all this other stuff has come on top of it, and I'm very fortunate. But my point is, I was happy doing the work when it was for $55,000 at a Collierville high school football game. I love the work. I like working. I worked today and I had a good time. I got to go work tomorrow, and I'm going to have a good time doing it. I don't stress about work. Yeah. A lot of people work. I mean, I do stress about work and I get overwhelmed, but a lot of people can't wait for Friday because that represents the end of the week. Yeah. Doesn't matter. I never, ever think like that.
Gary, I just spoke, like I said, to Lewisburg, and what I went to speak about was entrepreneurship, but more specifically about life setting. That the fact that if you pursue something for monetary means, for materialistic means, it is a shell. It is empty. You're going to build a house on sand and it will fall apart. Chase a purpose, chase a passion, because within that, you will be happy. And happiness is the key in life, in my opinion. Do something you love. And as they say, and it's cliche, but it's true, do something you love. You never work a day in your life.
And do something, And like, I remember some advice somebody gave me when I was young was find something you love and then find somebody who will pay you to do it. But don't get caught up on the money. Yeah. If my options coming out of college, I really believe this to be true. If my options coming out of college were to go to the commercial appeal and make $40,000 or go do something I don't want to do for $80,000, I would have done the $40,000 commercial appeal thing. I am lucky that not only am I now, like I'm doing okay, you know, I got a nice house, nice cars and all that stuff. But the most important aspect of my career is that I enjoy doing the work. I don't feel like I'm working. I mean, I get overwhelmed by the time commitment it takes and the different directions I get pulled, but I never or rarely do I go, God, I got to go back to work tomorrow. I'm like, man, I can't wait to go back to work tomorrow and tell these stories and do these things. I enjoy the work. I am fortunate that the work that I do allows me to have the lifestyle that I have. But if I were making a fraction of this, I don't know what else I'd be happy doing.
Yeah.
I've thought about a lawyer before because I'm good at making arguments. And I think I'd be a good trial lawyer. I think I'd be good in that setting.
Unless you're arguing with your wife.
Yes, I can't win those.
That has been established.
I can't win those, but I can win them with most other people.
Yeah, right.
So I thought about that, but then it's like, would I have wanted to go to law school and do all that? I don't know. I'm very glad that I wake up every day and I don't have to put on obviously you put on a tie, you go to a television studio, but I wake up every day, I get my kids off to school. I can put on basketball shorts. I prepare a show. I think it through. And then I execute it, and then I move on to the next thing. I don't have a traditional 9-to-5 job. Literally never have. And I'm really thankful for that because I know people who, have to set the alarm every morning, get up, put on the same outfit, clock in for metaphorically speaking, and then do that job that they don't love. They just doing it because it provides them the most money they can have to do the things that they love. Yeah. Well, I get to do something I actually have passion for and, create revenue off of it.
I would say this. So, and you just talked about it, and we're going to wrap on this part here because I love this and I know we're getting long. But you started out just talking about how you were a columnist and a writer, and that was your passion, that was your goal. And then it kind of led to one thing and the next and the next. And now, of course, you're a personality on TV, you're doing podcast stuff. Your passion can be related to a lot of things. I was a baseball player. I love baseball. Turns out Yankees didn't call me. We were going to play for the Mets. We could have been playing against each other. Who would have known?
What, man, that'd have
been amazing. But it didn't happen. So anyways, it's all good. We're here today, and that's awesome. And from there, going into the fire service, it was a passion of mine. It was an easy transition. Why I made great grades in there. I loved it. Getting out of that, I started teaching. I love teaching. So I'm teaching EMS. And then now I'm doing this, and this is a passion, and I love it. And it's so easy to do these things and put the work in because it is absolutely a part of who I am. It's my personality. It's who I am. And that's what I would say to everybody. So wrapping up, Gary, and now I could talk to you forever.
Right.
Besides the fact that we grew up knowing each other, you're a little younger than me, but we went to Horn Lake. We hung around some of the same groups and stuff. It was awesome. And I could catch up with you forever. But my question is this. What would you leave our listeners with as a final thought, my friend?
Listen, I don't get caught up in the idea that you can become anything you want to be, right? You hear that message all the time. Like, if you want to be president of the United States, you can become president of the United States. Well, that's just obviously not true. It doesn't mean that, somebody's got to become the president of the United States, but taken literally when people give that kind of advice is if you want to do something, you can do it. It's not true. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Nothing's guaranteed. But I would tell anybody before you settle into something short of what you really wanted, make sure you see it all the way through. Make sure you go. The John Krasinski story is a great example of that I told earlier. You don't ever want to look back and regret something that you didn't do. I think people sometimes attach regret, that the idea of it, to things you did. Like, I regret drinking too much. I regret anything that you might regret that you do. I actually think the regrets that are harder are the ones that you regret not doing something
you didn't pursue.
You can do something stupid, regret it, learn from it, and grow. Yeah. But if you don't pursue something and that ends up being the regret, that's one you carry around with you forever, because it's a forever game of what if. I'm now working this job for not enough money that I don't even enjoy. What if I would have tried that thing? I might not have made it, but at least I wouldn't have to wonder my whole life if I would have. And that really, I am lucky in that it all happened for me pretty quickly. I didn't have this struggle that some people have. I didn't have to start at the small, newspaper in Millington. My first newspaper job was at a big newspaper. My first television job was on national television. My first radio job was at a big radio station. I didn't have I didn't have to fight through adversity too much, but I'm confident that if I would have been required to do it, I would have, and that is my advice to young people: chase your dreams and do not ever think they have to happen quickly. Sometimes I talk to people and they go, I'm 23 years old and I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, you don't need to know. It is awesome that I was lucky enough to know. But one of my best friends in the world is Jeff Calkins, who's the longtime columnist at the Commercial Appeal, now Daily Memphian. He's a Harvard graduate, graduated Harvard undergrad, Harvard Law, and got hired at a firm in DC, straight out of Harvard Law, making six figures back in the 80s, like doing well. And he quit to become a sports writer. He quit a six-figure job at a law firm in DC as a Harvard Law graduate to go be a sports writer in Anniston, Alabama for like $15,000, because he said, I'm not happy doing this for all this money. I'd be happier broke, but doing something I have a passion for. Yeah. That takes a lot of guts to do that.
Sure it does.
But my larger point is he didn't do that till he was like 30 years old.
Yeah.
So what I've just held up for you is a Harvard grad who had no idea what he's going to do until he was in his 30s, and his life has career worked out brilliantly. That's my biggest eye roll for young people. Not eye roll because that sounds dismissive. They just don't know. Either some people have no dreams at all, or other people think if it doesn't happen immediately, it's never going to happen. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to keep with it. And that would be my advice. Identify your dream, chase it, and then try to put yourself in the rooms where some good stuff can happen. Maybe you take a job somewhere. I always tell people, what do you want to do? I want to be on radio. Get a job at a radio station then. Yeah, but they won't hire him to be on radio. Just get a job at the station. Just get in a room. Get in a building.
Got to start somewhere.
See what happens. Maybe you're the backup producer on day one. But then the backup producer got sick. They need you in an emergency. You do a good job there. Now you're producing your own show. Okay, you're on mic sometimes with the host. That's not what you want, but now it's a step in the right direction. Host just got sick, took vacation. Hey, rather than get a guest host, why don't we just let Chris, he's been producing the show, but he can talk on a mic. He seems comfortable. Let's just put him in that chair. Then you do well at that. Now it's like they got a job open. Hey, why don't we just make him the new host? Got to get in the door. Got to get in the room. And so that's chase your dreams. Chase them longer than you think that seems sensible, and continue to put yourselves in rooms where good stuff can happen. And my experiences, at least, is that if you got some talent and you got the right work ethic and you put yourself in a proper position, you don't know what is going to happen, but often some good things just come out of wherever. Yeah. I had a young man, and then I'll shut up. He's from Memphis. I literally grew up on some level listening to me, and just randomly reached out to me when he was in college. And he said, GP, just, with all the nice stuff that people say when they email you out of the blue. And it was like, hey, just wondering if I'm in journalism, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know where I'm going. I'm getting nervous. And I called him immediately. And I said, first off, I know what you're feeling, because I used to feel the same way. Sitting in a classroom, don't know where this is going. I said, here's my advice to you. Just pursue things that you think you're interested in, even if you're not certain you are, and then just get in them. Just get in them. And you'll find it. If you have the right work, you'll find it. And he calls me a year later, and he was like, hey, I'm working at a sports agency now, and I love it. I had no idea that's what I wanted to do, but I just kept putting myself in spots. That's pretty good advice for everybody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Gary, I'm going to tell you something, brother. You're a rock star. I appreciate you. I love you. I'm glad that you came on my show today.
Man, I'm glad.
I know you're busy. It's right in the middle of basketball season.
Yeah, we were trying to set it up, and we had to, with my travel schedule, figure out when we could get together. Yeah. But I was, first off, just great to see your name pop up in inbox, and then just good to see you, buddy. I'm real happy for you, and I just enjoy seeing you and spending any time with you.
I wish you absolutely nothing but the best. 2024 going to bring some big things, as we say here at the studio now. Pedal to the floor for 2024.
I'll do it.
So we're going to do this thing. Hey, look, to my listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in each and every week. I love all your comments. Continue to support us. And if you have something that maybe you would like to hear, send me something. Give me some suggestions, because I don't mind covering those things either. I love you guys. Please continue to support us. Happy 2024. Let's go make this thing happen. And until next time, Coach Camp Ow!
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just give me up. Don't be back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so on, you're gonna be hurting bad, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong, you will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you're gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math, when I hate, I attack. I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I